At the family dinner, I was lifting my glass when I heard it. My father's voice cutting through the chatter like a blade. "Nobody needs your money or you?" The room didn't even flinch. My sister nodded, almost amused, as if she'd been waiting to say it out loud for years. Heat crawled up my neck, but I kept my face steady, my smile small, my silence sharper than anything they threw at me. They thought I'd swallow it the way I always did. But sitting at that table, surrounded by people who only valued what I provided, I knew something they didn't. Their downfall had already begun. I grew up in that house believing silence was the price of belonging. My parents never said it outright, but it lived in the pauses between their sentences. Those tiny, sharp moments where I learned my value came from what I could give, not who I was. Even as a kid, I filled the gaps. If Sarah forgot her homework, I ran it to school. If Dad needed someone to stay home with Grandma, I canceled my plans. And when Sarah hit adulthood and her bills started piling up, somehow they all ended up in my hands too. They called it being the reliable one. But reliability turns into servitude fast when no one asks how you're doing. On the outside, my family looked warm, tight-knit, loud in a good way. Holiday photos, matching sweaters, my mom's famous sweet potato casserole sitting in the middle of the table like a trophy. People always said we were lucky, but the kind of luck they meant was the pretty kind. The kind you can frame, not the kind that keeps you safe. Grandma was the only person who ever looked at me and didn't see utility. I still remember her tiny kitchen, the smell of peppermint tea and old books. The way her hands would rest on mine when she said, "You don't have to save the whole world, honey." Back then, I didn't realize she meant my world, my family. After she passed, that kitchen became my sanctuary. I kept the key, I kept the memory of someone who saw me. Back at the dinner table, the same table I'd spent decades setting, clearing, cooking for, I sat between people who had rewritten me in their heads. Not Maya, the project manager. Not Maya, who paid her own rent and built her own life, but Maya, the one who fixes things. The one who always shows up, the one who covers the bill, the one who doesn't complain. Dad didn't even look up when he said the words. Mom just kept slicing the ham. Sarah smirked into her wine. And somehow in that moment, everything clicked into place like a door finally shutting. That house wasn't mine. Never had been. Maybe that's why their words didn't crush me the way they expected. God, it hurt. But it didn't break me. It clarified things. It made the air sharp. It made the path forward clean. I realized something no one at that table had ever imagined. I didn't need them either. Not their approval, their guilt, their rules, or the seat they thought they had the right to take away. And for the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like a beginning. The dinner kept going as if nothing had happened. Plates scraped, glasses clinked. Someone laughed at a joke I didn't hear. But inside my head everything went still. Like the world had dropped into slow motion. I watched my family the way you watch strangers on a train. Curious, detached, wondering how you ever thought you belonged among them. Sarah leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine like she'd won something. "Mom's right," she added casually. "You take things too seriously, Maya. No one needs all that you do." "Not really," she said, as if it was a kindness, like she was easing a burden off my shoulders. But what she really meant was, "You're only useful when we want you to be." I glanced at my sister, whose late bills I'd paid, whose kids I'd bought school clothes for when she was between jobs, whose emergencies somehow always landed in my lap. She never remembered the details, only the convenience, only the expectation. Mom finally looked up from the ham she was slicing. "You work so much anyway," she said. "It's not like you have a family of your own to worry about. We don't want you burning yourself out for nothing." For nothing. That one stung more than I'd admit, as if every hour I spent climbing my career, every quiet effort to build a life by myself was worthless because it wasn't serving them. Dad didn't even glance my way when he muttered, "Let's not make this dramatic. It's just the truth. You take things personally." It was gaslighting with a coat of polite varnish. They had long mastered the art. I looked around the table at the candles, the holiday centerpiece, the empty chair Grandma used to sit in. I used to think her absence left a simple ache. But now it felt like a warning I hadn't listened to soon enough. Sarah dropped her fork, annoyed by my silence. "Come on, Maya, say something." But I didn't trust my voice. Not because I was afraid of what they'd think, but because anger, like silence, quiet, precise, razor sharp, doesn't want to be spoken. It wants to be acted on. I reached for my napkin, folded it neatly, and set it by my plate. A simple motion, but it shifted something in the room. Sarah noticed first, her brow tightened. Mom paused mid-slice. I stood, calm as the surface of a frozen lake. "I hear you," I said softly, loud and clear. Dad waved a hand dismissively. "Good. Then we can move on." But the truth was that was the moment I moved on from the version of myself they'd built. The Maya who bent, who fixed, who carried. The Maya who gave without asking, who stayed small so others could stay comfortable. As I walked toward the hallway to grab my coat, I felt something inside me settle into place. Not a crack, not a break, but a decision. They wanted me silent. Fine, silence was exactly what they would get. And they had no idea what silence for me actually meant. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't storm out or raise my voice. I simply stepped into the cold night, letting the air bite at my cheeks as if it could keep me from sinking too deep into the hurt. The porch light flickered behind me, and for a second I saw my reflection in the window, tired eyes, tense shoulders, the familiar posture of someone who'd carried too much for too long. The walk to my car felt longer than usual. Each step peeled back another layer of memory. Every time I'd shown up with groceries, every time Sarah forgot payday and an emergency bill landed on me, every moment Dad praised my reliability only to punish me with it later. By the time I reached the driver's seat, a quiet tremor ran through my hands. Not from fear, from recognition, from clarity. At home, the silence hit harder than their words. I turned on the hallway lamp, soft, warm light spilling across my small, tidy living room. The space had always felt like a pause between battles. That night, it felt like neutral territory finally reclaimed. I sat at my dining table, pulled my laptop closer, and opened a folder I'd never dared start before. Family payments. The name looked foreign, almost clinical. But the truth inside it wasn't new. Bank statements, transfers, receipts I'd buried under rationalizations like they needed help or, it's just this once. I went through them slowly, like someone sorting through the wreckage of a house after a storm. Patterns jumped out. Repeated withdrawals, emergency charges, late-night transfers. The timeline formed itself sharp and undeniable. For years, I thought speaking up would make me cruel. But silence had made me disposable. The decision arrived gently, the way dawn touches a dark room. No drama, no breakdown, just a shift. I sent an email to a lawyer whose name Jen had mentioned months earlier. She once told me, if you ever get tired of being their safety net, call him. Back then, I laughed it off. Now it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I attached everything, every receipt, every transfer, every message. My cursor hovered over the send button. I breathed once, steady, click. The file left my inbox, quiet and final. They wanted a silent Maya. They were getting one, just not the version they expected. The reply from the lawyer came faster than I expected. I've reviewed what you sent, he wrote. This isn't just family help, it's a pattern of financial exploitation. If you're ready, we can move forward. Ready. I stared at that word. Then I saw Dad's bored face in my mind, heard Mom say, nobody needed me, saw Sarah smirking into her wine. I typed back one sentence, I'm ready? The days that followed were different. I wasn't patching holes in someone else's boat. I was building a case. I met the lawyer in a small office downtown. He listened while I laid everything out. From the first borrowed payment to the night they told me I wasn't needed. He asked questions, dates, amounts, exact phrases from their texts. You understand? He said once we file, this stops being private. It becomes a legal matter. They stopped being just family when they treated me like a walking account, I said. We documented everything, late-night transfers, Sarah begging for emergencies, Mom calling about bills, Dad wrapping my help in words like duty. On paper, it's a straight line of withdrawals and guilt. When the fraud report was submitted, there was no thunderclap, just a confirmation email and a message from my lawyer. They'll open an investigation. Meanwhile, my family noticed the shift. Sarah texted first, you're acting weird. Is this about dinner? Mom didn't mean it. I didn't answer. Then Mom called, then Dad. Voicemails stacked up. We're worried about you. Don't take things so personally. Family talks. You know that. In one message, I heard Sarah in the background complaining that her card kept getting declined. I let it play to the end, then deleted it. 2 weeks later, my lawyer called. They've opened an investigation, he said. There's enough to move forward. They'll speak with you again, and with them. Them. I repeated. You've been carrying this alone for years. It's theirs to carry now, he said. The day it happened, the sky was a flat winter gray. My lawyer said I didn't have to be there when the investigators showed up. But I wanted to see the moment they realized I wasn't theirs to use anymore. From the street, my parents' house looked the same same wreath, same crack in the step. Through the dining room window, I saw the table set with my family in their usual places. I parked, walked up, knocked once, and let myself in. Maya, you didn't say you were coming, Mom said, looking up startled. I took off my coat, taking in the scene. Dad at the head of the table. Mom at his right. Sarah across from my old chair. Seth leaned back, relaxed. Mom's eyes narrowed. Don't start? Sarah rolled her eyes. You're seriously still on that? I walked to my seat but didn't sit. I set my bag there instead. Dad cleared his throat. Look, he said, about what was said last time. Let's not blow it up. We were just talking. I was just being honest. That's one word for it, I said. Seth snorted. We said we don't need your money. Take the hint. I looked from him to Sarah. Funny, I said quietly. Some people are very interested in where my money went. Sarah's laugh cut off. What's that supposed to mean? Before I answered, there was a sharp knock at the front door, 3 hard, measured hits that rattled the frame. The sound froze the room. "Who is that?" Dad frowned. I said. He pushed his chair back and went to the door. He opened it and stopped. "Good evening, sir," a man said. "Financial Crimes Unit. We're looking for Sarah and Seth Miller and Thomas and Elaine Carver." Silence dropped over the house. "There has to be some mistake," Mom said, standing up. 2 investigators stepped inside, badges visible. One held a tablet, the other held a folder I recognized from the copies my lawyer had shown me. "There's no mistake," the woman said. "We're here regarding an investigation into alleged financial fraud and exploitation. We'd like to ask you some questions." Sarah's chair screeched back. "Maya," she hissed. "What did you do?" For the first time in a long time, I didn't shrink. "I stayed silent," I said. "Then I started doing things you never expected." Seth stepped forward, face red. "You called the cops on your own family over a few transfers." The male investigator looked at him. "We're talking about years of unauthorized withdrawals and coerced payments. That's not a few transfers." "Please sit down, sir." Dad tried to pull himself together. "This is a misunderstanding. Any money moved around was family business." "Family business doesn't override the law," the woman replied. "You'll each have the chance to explain. For now, we need you to remain while we ask some questions." Mom turned to me, eyes wet. "Maya, tell them this isn't what it looks like." I met her gaze. "You told me nobody needed my money or me," I said quietly. "So I stopped giving you both." Her mouth opened and closed. "We were upset. We didn't mean, you meant it enough to say it." I cut in. The words didn't come out as a shout. They came out level, held up by every drained account. Sarah lurched forward. "You're gonna let them ruin our lives?" "I didn't ruin anything," I said. "I just stopped hiding what you did." The investigators began dates, amounts, authorizations. Sarah stumbled, looking at Mom, at Dad. Seth scoffed once, then fell silent when specific totals were read. Every favor shrank under the weight of the numbers. I didn't stay for the whole thing. I had no interest in watching them scramble. As I picked up my bag, Dad snapped, "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." For years that sentence had been a loaded gun pointed at my chest. This time it just sounded tired. I looked at him. At the man who taught me family was everything as long as I kept paying for it. "I left a long time ago," I said. "You're just noticing now." Then I stepped outside, closing the door softly behind me, leaving the investigators and my family on the other side with the only thing that had ever really belonged to them, the consequences. I drove away without looking back, but the fallout found its way to me anyway. 3 days later, Sarah's number flashed across my screen over and over until it finally stopped. Then came a text from an unknown number. "Seth, they froze my accounts. I might get suspended. Fix this?" I didn't reply. A week after that, Mom sent a long email layered with guilt and half apologies. "We didn't understand how serious this was," she wrote. "Your father is devastated. Please talk to us." The same man who told me nobody needed me was now begging for a conversation. Funny how quickly roles reverse when the money stops. Dad never reached out directly, but Jen did. 2 sentences, "They're panicking. You did the right thing." Kelly sent a longer message, thanking me for exposing what she'd seen. Signs of it for years. "You were brave enough for all of us," she wrote. And somewhere between their unraveling and my quiet days alone, something shifted. I found a small apartment 2 states away, close to work, close to peace. No tense dinners, no sudden emergencies, no guilt disguised as love. For the first time in my life, the silence around me didn't feel like absence. It felt like freedom. Some nights I sit by my window with the lamp on low, watching the city move without me. I think about that dinner, the words meant to break me, and how they ended up setting me free instead. I used to believe family loyalty meant endurance, absorbing every blow, filling every gap, paying every debt. But love without respect isn't loyalty, it's captivity. Walking away wasn't punishment, it was clarity. And the silence they once mocked became the boundary that saved me. If any part of my story feels familiar, if you've ever been used, dismissed, or told you were too sensitive, you aren't alone. You deserve reciprocity, not extraction. You deserve to be seen, not spent. Share your experience in the comments. I read all of them. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe so you won't miss what comes next.